That's what you think.
I'm the wizard master.
I said, where's the fucking rabbit?
Give me tongue tie. Let's go kick the motherfucker's ass all over dream. In my dreams, I'm beautiful.
Your big breaking TV. That's the prime time, bitch.
Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of the WayBack Movies Podcast, a show where we review the best and not so best of 80s and 90s cinema, because really, fuck the 2000s. My name is Steve, and with me on this crazy journey,
Justin.
Doctor. And we're back. Back on Elm Street, if you will.
Yes, sir.
We are going for what most people would consider actually the best of the series. This is considered by a huge margin the greatest of them all because it combines the horror elements of the original couple and then the sort of jokey, fun style of the next few. So it's kind of the bridging of the gap, so people kind of dig this one a lot. So, yeah, we are talking about, as you could tell from our fantastic intro there, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors from February 27th, 1987. So, yeah.
Jump right in.
I guess so. So with that, we will jump in the Wayback Machine to 1987. Oof. It's a rough journey, that one. Yeah, so here we are. It's 1987. Things were all 80s like. So much fucking fluorescence. It's crazy.
Yep.
I don't know. Welcome to the 80s.
It's the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, neon signs and cocaine.
Pretty much. And, you know, just everything 80s. I miss the 80s. I really do. Kind of. Sort of. A little bit.
That trailed off. You're
It
just like,
kinda
I
did.
missed it.
I
Not
miss
really.
it, kind of.
You know what,
But
on second thought.
Some of it I don't. I'm not going to lie. Some of the 80s is a little strange. However, this is not one of them. So yes, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, February 27th, 1987. Directed by Chuck Russell. Screenplay, bear with me here on this one. Screenplay by Wes Craven, Bruce Wagner, Frank Darabont, and Chuck Russell. Story by Wes Craven and Bruce Wagner. Produced by Robert Shea. Production companies Huron Communications, Smart Egg Pictures. Distributor New Line Cinema. Box office of $44.8 million against a budget of $5 million.
Money.
Yeah. Horror movies make money, people. So, the cast. Heather Langenkamp returns as Nancy Thompson. Craig Wasson as Dr. Neil Gordon. Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Patricia Arquette as Kristen Parker. Ken Sagos as Roland Kincaid. Rodney Eastman as Joey Crucell. Jennifer Rubin as Taryn White. Larry Fishburne as Max Daniels, Ira Hayden, I think that's how you pronounce that, as Will Stanton. Penelope Sudrow, Jennifer Caulfield. Bradley Gregg as Philip Anderson. Nan Martin as Amanda Kruger / Sister Mary Helena. John Saxon returns as Donald Thompson. And Priscilla Pointer as Dr. Elizabeth Sims, a.k.a. Bitch. And Brooke Bundy as Elaine Parker. So, that's your cast. So, the production of this flick had weirdness to it. So,
As I assume most horror productions
a lot of them do, especially because most of these, although this is the only one that they took a break on, the rest of them kind of were just like every year kind of thing, and this is like, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you give them less than 6 month turnaround, shit's gonna go down. But this one had a little bit of time, so with Freddy's Revenge being completely hated by critics, New Line wasn't sure they wanted to continue with the franchise, but realizing it was a box office success, they decided to make one final movie to close it out. How'd that work out for you guys? Robert Englund pitched a treatment for a third film entitled A Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy's Funhouse, which was rejected. In it, he planned to have a character that was Tina, from the first film's sister, who was away at school during the first film, having nightmares about what happened to her sister. Bothered by it, she tries to investigate what happened to Tina. The title Freddy's Funhouse meant that Freddy was going to booby-trap the Elm Street house in the dream world to fit his sensibilities. He'd also planned to show... Yeah.
Like Home Alone?
Yeah. Well, like Home Alone has been stealing from Wes Craven for years. Because, you know, Wes Craven likes himself some booby traps. Going forward, it doesn't change. He'd also planned to show what happened to Freddy when he was alive, i.e. his trial and murder, and more on his backstory, which was eventually done a couple years later as the first episode of Freddy's Nightmares, directed by Tobe Hooper. He didn't have an ending, but he did have an idea where the kids would wake each other up and write their dreams in a journal, hiding weapons in the words, and take them into the dream to fight Freddy. Which is an interesting idea, I'm not going to lie. That would have been kind of cool to implement at some point, but that didn't happen. Robert didn't mind it being rejected when he found out that executive producer Sarah Risher went to Wes Craven again, asking if he wanted to write and direct, which she did before the production of every one of these movies. Wes's very first concept for the film was to have Freddy invade the real world. He would haunt the actors, filming a new Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. New Line Cinema rejected the meta-cinematic idea. For now. Wes was heavily in pre-production on a film called Deadly Friend, so he would sort of relay stories to Bruce Wagner, and then Bruce would flesh them out into a full screenplay. They found the script to be way too ambitious for a lower budget, as well as a little too dark, because Wes went really fucking dark on the script, because this script is available online, so I did read it. So some of the ideas that were in this script were Freddy rebirthing himself into existence, an idea that was eventually used in Dream Child. A couple different character names, mostly focused on Freddy's home when he was alive. That could have been the Elm Street house, but it wasn't really made clear. But it was definitely very focused on the home. And the focus was also burning down the house as opposed to destroying Freddy's bones. Like, if you burnt down the house, it would kill him. I thought the same thing, but, there was no other way to say that.
You would have had a song for the main song for the the film.
I will. Although at this, yeah.
Can somebody get a hold of the Talking Heads?
I mean, do you think they would go for that?
Oh, yeah.
You think?
Burns is a weird guy.
Yeah, that's true, And in all fairness, Freddy was the most popular thing in the world by this point, so, by the end of this, so, it's possible. Nancy wasn't a dream researcher, she just happened to meet Neil, and ends up in the hospital as his assistant. Her father was traveling to multiple cities trying to find a way to kill Freddy, so, unlike this one, he totally bought into it, the whole thing, and figured he needed to continue trying to kill him. Kristen was only in the hospital for a short while in the script, and then released, and visits with Nancy every now and then. So, I mean, she eventually ended up back at the hospital through the dreams and stuff like that, but she essentially was only there for like a couple days. I'll get into why that would make sense in a minute, because it's not like it was in the film, where it was an actual mental hospital. This is an actual thing, but I'll get to that in a minute. Much more focused on the effect Freddy has on the outside world while manipulating the dreamer, kind of the same as it is in the film itself. Freddy was much more vulgar in this script. If it had gone through, his trademark catchphrase would certainly not have been bitch, it would have been cunt. Because he uses it 4 times at least in that script.
How British of him.
Yeah, very much so. It's fucked up, man. Some of the shit that's in there is like, wow, Wes, tell us how you really feel, man. Many more special effects, including Will, that character that was actually named Laredo in the script, who was a very hunky, long-haired hunk of a dude who still played D&D, because in the 80s
like
that
Fabio?
happened. Well, not quite Fabio, because he's still supposed to be like 15, okay. But,
Teenage Fabio?
Teenage Fabio, there you go.
Who plays D&D?
Yeah, who plays D&D, because that was a thing, hunky people playing D&D was all over the place in the 80s.
Yeah, it's called Riverdale.
Yeah, really. But that takes place in 2019. That's almost believable.
Yeah, but this song isn't.
Well, that's true. But this would have had him turning into a giant gargoyle to fight Freddy. It does not go well.
Like Riverdale gargoyle.
Kind of. But yeah, it doesn't bode well.
It doesn't go well for Will either.
Freddy murders a lot of fucking people in that one, too. I'll get to that in a second. Ends with Kristen... This is fucked up. The whole movie ends with Kristen impaling a reborn baby Freddy on his own glove. That would have been in the movie had they gone with it.
A family picture.
Yeah, right.
Bring the kids.
A much higher body count. Of the main characters, only Kristen, Neil, and Max survive. So, the nurse, well, not nurse, the Dr. Sims character, I can't remember what her name is in the script, she dies.
Oh, in that script.
In the original script, yeah, she dies. Yeah, like, Nancy dies. Everybody else dies in much, much, much more gruesome ways. A lot of body parts exploding. At one point in time, Freddy turns into kind of like the grandmother in Little Red Riding Hood, but is like still kind of the wolf and flat out eats someone.
Oh, so they're just like...
It just went fucking... it just went nuts. And that was sort of where they were like, hey, Wes, you went crazy a little bit.
We're going to call Frank and Chuck, and we're going to...
Well, not yet. New Line began working with Wes and Bruce on rewrites when they were pitched by two newcomers named Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont. Yeah, Frank Darabont.
That
Frank Darabont was a newbie at this point. Joseph Rubin was the studio's first choice to direct the film, having already directed Dreamscape. But was forced to decline due to having already signed on to direct The Stepfather. He instead recommended his Dreamscape co-writer, Chuck Russell, for the job. Did I mention Dreamscape in Nightmare 1?
I cannot remember, sir.
Because there's a thing in Nightmare 1, I'll recap it quickly then. Dreamscape was a movie that came out the same year as A Nightmare on Elm Street. It was a film that it was involving like nightmares and death involving the shit like that, and it came out, like I said, like a couple months before, and it was fucking panned by critics. Everyone thought it was shit and wasn't going to make money.
And then Nightmare
Everybody was well, not yet. Everyone making the movie when it was came out just literally went, "Oh, come on, really? Oh, we're fucked. We are completely fucked." However, Nightmare on Elm Street's a much better film. Rachel Taylor, who had worked up from production accountant on the first to line producer on this, pushed Sarah and Bob to hire the two to rewrite the script because Wes's script was a little too violent.
Little much there, Wes.
Little bit, man. Little bit.
Little much.
Yeah.
With the grandma wolf eating.
Yeah.
people.
However, they did keep a lot from the original script. They just made it like a smaller film.
A smidge.
Just kind of, I mean, aside from lightening it up for sure, they definitely made it just smaller and kept it mostly in the hospital, which is the smart move.
Yeah.
They loved the script. Even Wes really liked it. So they were just
when they redid it and everything.
Yeah, when they redid it, he read it. He's like, this is fantastic, go. So they were just like, oh, okay. And so as Wes and Bruce were writing the original script, Wes had called Heather Langenkamp and asked her if she'd be interested on reprising her role as Nancy. She resisted at first, but eventually came on board. According to Wes Craven, the idea for the mental health facility treating the Dream Warriors was inspired by real-life establishments. This is fucked up. At this time, there was kind of like a movement of such places like this that were advertised on television that was just like, send us your troubled children and we'll make them okay.
The 80s.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. So it wasn't like an actual mental asylum. They were just there. They were prisons. And it was just
Bring
like,
us your children.
Your kid's an asshole. Send it to us if you can't deal with it, and we'll take care of it. And there's a hint of that in this version, but that was very much what the original script was. Hence the fact that Kristen's only there for like 2 days.
Well, and the fact that they like write the parent as like just a major.
Well,
bitch.
yeah, the parent. Well, she's actually so much worse than Wes's one.
Oh, I can imagine.
She doesn't give a flying fuck about Kristen. At least this one does care about Kristen a bit. She's still very much obsessed with herself, but in the original script, like literally, she's talking when Neil and Nancy go to talk to the mother. She's mostly talking about the fact that she can't believe that she's in a tennis tournament. This is what half the script is with this woman. So she's a little more, at least she seems to give a rat's ass, sort of. She's still a bitch. Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont's script decided to lighten it, as you can imagine, using dark humor and turning the dreams into a sort of twisted carnival. A major turning point in the franchise, as it would follow for the remainder of the series. Ken Sago says in his interview he didn't want to audition for this movie. but his agent talked him into it. Now Ken was playing Kincaid. On the day of the audition, he walked in heavy rain to catch a